So I've never really had a great gut. It it's I mean, I remember when I was really young, maybe before 12 anyway, it was fine. But then I just started to get skin issues and lactose intolerance, and things just gradually got worse and worse until I ended up with IBS, histamine intolerance. And before all this happened, pretty much I could tolerate meat, but it still triggered histamine issues. Everything else pretty much triggers skin issues, depression, migraines, any carbs, any plants, fiber. So I've just I've never really figured out the answers. I've tried extended fasting. I've tried all the different supplements and tests and whatever, restrictive eating, all the diets, but I never really figured it out. So I didn't realize what I was doing when I got an issue. I was getting a root canal with a tooth, and we left the root canal because they do one part, leave it open, and then they do another part, whatever. And it just never really. It was always heaps of infections in the neck and in the tooth, non-stop. So I was on antibiotics for about 2 months straight, and a couple of the doses were very strong ones, Augmentin. And when I finally got the tooth out, I stopped the antibiotics, and what I noticed is that I just had watery diarrhea, water coming out multiple times a day, 5, 10 times a day. And my gut was just awful. I even at one point I ate a bunch of food and threw up, and that's never happened to me before. It was awful. And I was like this for about a month. I was just thinking my gut would recover, because I've always had some kind of gut issues. But then after a month, I was like, okay, something's wrong here. This isn't normal. This is water, diarrhea, 5, 10 times a day for a month. So I went to doctors and I got a test done, and it turns out I tested positive for C. diff, C. difficile. And what it is each doctor gives you a different information, all the websites. I mean, when it comes to the gut, no one knows. It's infinitely complex. It's like claiming to know the universe, right? It's just as complex because of the microbes and the way everything works together. And we only recently realized that the gut affects the mind, that neurochemicals developed in the gut, that foods you eat can cause cancer and depression and psychosis and all these things. This is only a recent discovery. Doctors used to say that no, food has no effect on your health, which seems ridiculous. But anyway, some doctors say that this comes from, it's an outside source where you can catch it. Others say that it wipes out the microbiome, the healthy microbiome, and then what's left of this infection that takes over. And that makes the most sense to me. For whatever reason, this infection has developed a very powerful resistance to antibiotics, and it just takes over if you're on certain types of antibiotics or on them long enough, it just seems to proliferate. But anyway, why doesn't really matter, because it's not like we can ever understand it now with the technology we have now anyway. But eventually it got so bad that I was in a lot of pain in my left side of my bladder, and all this other pain all over the body. It felt like my whole system was infected with something. So they put me on this drug, midriconazole, something like that. It's the first line defense for it. It's an antibiotic again. I had no choice. I was like, oh, there was nothing in Australia as well. We don't have a lot of the access to things that we do in the US, that they do in the US in terms of FMT, fecal microbiome transplants and stuff, which makes sense. That seems like the most secure way to do it. But here, I think you can do it, but it costs thousands of dollars. So I tried this drug and it was awful. The side effects were unbelievable. I did it for 3 days and everything got worse. And I went back to the doctor and I was like, look, everything's getting worse. By 3 days, you'd think there should be some improvement. So they put me on this other drug called vancomycin. This is the second line defense for, and they call it a last resort, drug of last resort or something. Very hard to get here. I had to go to a million pharmacists to try to get it. It's somewhat expensive. It's not too bad because the doctor was able to, they make this call and they can make it cheaper. So anyway, I got started on that, and yeah, within a few days things were better, and it's 4 days now into it, and everything's better. Not everything is perfect, but it's much better. But this vancomycin seems to have these side effects that concern me, like you risk losing hearing because I think they can be toxic to the ears for some reason. So this scares me. But I'm happy that we found something that works, and it's interesting because I'm having to use, this damage that medicine caused. I'm having to use more of the similar medicine to fix it. If I just had the tooth taken out, or I had been smarter, I wouldn't have started on these antibiotics at all. This C. diff is quite serious. It's very scary when you have it. All these things right through your whole body just start to go weird pains, weird sensations, things you're like, this has never happened before. And everything seems to go wrong. Headaches and tension and weird chest things and breathing and coughing. And I have pain everywhere, all over the body, and it's really scary. You don't know what's going on. And you read stuff online, and it talks about that there's once you're over 60, there's a high rate of death because of it, because they just can't get nutrients. I think what saved me in that regard was the diet. No fiber, meat. A little bit of fiber sometimes, not much. Mainly just meat and fat, ketosis. What would make sense to me is if I was an older person and I was sort of convinced by the modern diet brainwashing, and you got this and you kept eating the fruits and the vegetables and the cereals that you believe are healthy, but your body's already trying to absorb any nutrients it can, but then it's got the fiber, this pounds and pounds of fiber that you're just shoving into yourself that get into the way and make digestion more and more difficult. This makes sense to me that the body would be fighting multiple angles, already fighting this, trying to absorb any nutrients it can due to the excessive diarrhea, and then you just shove it full of fiber. You would just be drained of water and minerals and nutrients until you die. But I'm lucky in the sense that I experiment and I try to open my mind, and I'll always try new things if it's there to be available for me. I'm very used to the carnivore and keto, so I've just stuck to the carnivore/keto diet. And I think it saved me to an extent. I didn't look sick at any stage, except you can see that I've lost a lot of fat. I'm normally like that anyway because of keto, and I do a ton of exercise. Maybe that was a little bit more than usual, I don't know, but at no point did I look sick. And this sickness wipes people out. There's so many stories online, and I get it that the most negative side of things are going to be online. But it is very scary, and it really gets to you. I think some of the symptoms are from your mind, because it just makes you very anxious, this thing, and it's a nightmare. And I hope this works, because some people battle for years trying to fix it. And I hope I found the answer. But after this course of antibiotics, I'm done with the things. I realize now how bad things can get if you rely on this system that has no idea what it's doing. Sure, it tested some drugs in a lab and the rat survived and it killed something in the rat's body, but who knows what else it's doing, and I found out what they can do. if you listen to sometimes medical advice, these people don't care. I didn't have any of the dentists or doctors or anyone who it felt like I genuinely cared about my well-being. Also, they may not even know that it's an issue, that this is possible. So it's really up to us. We need to be smarter. And for me, unfortunately, the only way I get smarter is sometimes I just have to learn the hard way, which I've done this time. And I see how dark it can get if we really fuck with our guts. If our guts just completely destroyed, it is dark. Nothing works. Your health is just fucked without the gut. So if you have this disease, there is hope. You will fix it. It sucks. You're not going to really get a lot of medical people who know anything. Do the research yourself. Read. We have access to all the same stuff that these medical professionals have in terms of information because of the internet. I would go to them and they would essentially just Google things and on their computer. It's not Google, but some other system they use, and it gives them the information. And I was looking at it and I was like, I already knew what you were going to do because I've researched it all. If you get a diagnosis, read all the studies, list all the things that worked, list all the side effects, look at all the severe ones, take note of them, because if they come up, it needs to stop. The way I'm going to approach doctors now is that I'm going to research everything as much as I can, and I'm going to go to them with the problem and with the solution that I found and a list of studies that support my solution. Maybe if you're a medical professional and you're listening to this, you might hate this type of patient. This may really irritate them, but I don't care because they really irritate me. And the amount of trust that I have put in them in my life when I didn't know what I was doing is dangerous. So from now on, I take control of my own health. I have all the information, I'm smart enough to understand it, and I go to the doctor knowing what I need, knowing what's best for me. So anyway, I just wanted to make this video because it's been hell, and I hope anyone who has this, reach out to me if you need. Keep going because you will fix it. I know how shitty it is. First line defense, cut the fiber. No dairy, go keto, go carnivore, eat your meat and your fat. Get into ketosis because it will protect you throughout the whole thing, and then find your answers. Thanks, guys.